Hello friends, welcome to Anthro 360 Degrees. This is your Vijay Sarathi, your anthropology faculty. So today we are going to talk about the importance of PYQs, that is Anthropological PYQ Roundtable already we have announced. So as part of that, today I am going to throw some light on the questions that are from a particular part in the subject. So for that, I have divided the subject into several parts. You see, the syllabus has been divided into 6 parts for our convenience. Part number 1, we have got Introduction and Social Cultural Anthropology. For that matter, you can actually separate introduction part also. So in the second part, we deal usually with the social cultural part separately. And the third part is anthropological theories. In certain quarters, we also combine anthropological theories and social cultural part. For some purposes, we combine them, or certain others, we separate them also. So for the purpose of this discussion, I am separating anthropological theories. There is an idea called physical anthropology. So one of the important parts in your preparation is physical or biological part. Physical or biological anthropology is also one major part which is highly scoring as well. There is a part called archaeology or archaeological anthropology. So archaeology is also known as prehistory in some dimensions. Sometimes we call it as prehistoric archaeology. Then we have got the part called Indian society and culture. Indian society and culture. And finally, the tribal part or tribal anthropology. Tribal anthropology or the anthropology of the tribe. Sometimes we call even it as tribal India. So how many parts we can actually divide this? Either 6 or 7. For the purpose of clarity, I have made it into 7 parts, but when you combine this with this, it becomes one part, or this and this also you can combine. So mostly all the first 3 are called as social cultural dimension. The second one is physical or biological. Third is archaeological part. Fourth is actually the Indian society, and this is actually paper 2, Indian society and tribal India. So these 2 parts, Indian society and tribal India, come under paper 2. And archaeology actually bridges, it has combined paper 1 and paper 2. That is, there is a combined content in paper 1 and paper 2. But most of these parts actually belong to paper 1. So the syllabus is divided like this for the convenience of our preparation as well as to deal with in a professional manner. So when we examine the PYQs also, when you can do the analysis and come to certain understanding, there is a better way. This kind of division is very important. So we will start this discussion with anthropological theories PYQ discussion. Hope you have noted it down. So let's go to the next one. So when it comes to anthropological theories, that is the part number either 3 or 4, what we see is the questions that have come in the last 13 years. I have actually done an analysis of the entire paper 1 and paper 2 in the last 13 years, how many marks are actually allocated to each part. So if you pick up anthropological theories part, what you can notice is in 2025 there are 65 questions, 65 marks. There were 4 questions. For them, there were 315 marks and 120 marker. Similarly, in 2024, a good number of marks were awarded or allocated to the thought. And 2023, you can see 30, very less in 22, 40, 45, 30 is up to fine. This is in a moderate way. Again, higher level 60 were asked. And in 2015, 120 marks, 110 marks. And like that, everywhere, you see anthropological, without anthropological theories, no paper is set. That is the importance of this part. And if you understand this part, as we have noted already, there is a great deal of linkage with the social cultural part as well as the introductory part, and also in Indian anthropology. Indian anthropology also developed very well with the contribution of the theories of the West, some theories which have developed in the Western countries. So like that we go forward and see how many questions have come. As I told you, 4 questions in 2025 paper in paper 1 coming from the theories part. You can see the first question, that is, it has appeared as 2B. Compare and contrast the symbolic approaches of Clifford Geertz and Victor Turner to understand culture. So in theories, one of the important theory is your symbolic and interpretive theory. In that, the thinkers, key thinkers are Clifford Geertz and Victor Turner. So we'll take up that later. And critically examine James Frazer's theory of evolutionism, elucidate the place of religion in modernity. Again for 15 marks it has been asked. Again 7A, describe briefly the theoretical perspectives in linguistic anthropology, and to explain the relationship of culture, language and thought. So what is the idea here? Though the question looks like linguistic anthropology, but there is a good deal of connection of this question with another major theory called cognitive theories. If you see the syllabus clearly, in chapter 6 there are almost a dozen theories. I am just reeling them for you, right? Classical evolutionism, historical particularism, diffusionism. Again in diffusionism there are 3 schools, right? British, German and American. And then later functionalism, structural functionalism, structuralism, culture and personality school. Then we have neo-evolutionism, cultural materialism, then symbolic and interpretive theories, cognitive theories and postmodernism. So in that, last but from the bottom, penultimate one, क्या बोलते हैं, last but one. So the 11th theory, if you just number them, there are exactly dozen theories in the syllabus. So 11th one is cognitive theory, and this question actually is linked to cognitive theories. So when we go to the next topic, we'll deal with that. So today I'll be restricting myself to this question, right? The idea of James Frazer. And you can see similarly there are theories. How are the theories of postmodernism relevant in promoting social justice and empowerment of marginalized communities? So postmodernism came back to back. In 2025 they asked, in 2024 also they have asked a question on postmodernism. I'll deal with them separately. So presently we will discuss with the question number, that is critically 4C, critically examine James Frazer's theory of evolutionism, and also the other part of the question, elucidate the place of religion in modernity. It has come for 15 marks. So, as we have noted, this question comes under the theory called classical evolutionism. So, if you see the syllabus again, in classical evolutionism, the names are, 3 names are actually mentioned: Tyler, Morgan, Frazer. Tyler, E.B. Tyler, Morgan, L.H. Morgan, Frazer, James George Frazer. So, this man was said to be a classical evolutionist. Classical evolutionism is the theory which pioneered, that means it kick-started a slew of what you call ideas and concepts and principles which have been given a single rubric called theories. Either you call them as theories or part of anthropological thought. So, in classical evolutionism, James George Frazer is also a key thinker. So, he has contributed to classical evolutionism in his own way. He is a lawyer, he is a philosopher, he also has collected a lot of information from travelers, voyagers and all. Then he came up with some ideas. He has written an extraordinary book called something which became very famous as the Golden Bough. Golden Bough has been published in almost 12 volumes. So, right from the end of 19th century to the 20th century, this man has actually contributed a lot. So, James Frazer or James George Frazer has put his major ideas of classical evolutionism in his book. So this book is said to be a classic of those times in Britain especially and in the world in general. So classical evolutionist ideas of James Frazer were reflected in this, and in that he has also discussed his idea of evolutionism with respect to religion, because you see the second part of the question has got religion. And what is examiner trying to say? In fact, the examiner is giving a clue to you. Even if you forget what exactly is the contribution of evolutionism or theory of evolutionism, even if you tend to forget, the examiner is actually giving you a clue. Look, he basically spoke on religion. And of course, he has written on several things like mythology, magic and all. But this man is known to have given an evolutionary explanation on the religion. So, what are the ideas of Frazer? Frazer actually said religion also evolved, or rather, it's a part of the life. In fact, it's not exactly religion. It's about the people's entire human lifestyle. Either we call life or lifestyle or belief system evolved. In that, religion is a clue or it's a part. What is the point I am trying to say? Because if you see this aspect, lifestyle and evolutionism or evolutionary theory, especially classical evolutionists, they said things evolve, culture evolve, society evolve, social cultural institutions evolve. This is a basic principle of classical evolutionism, right? In that, Frazer said even people's lifestyle and people's belief systems also evolve. And Tyler said religion evolved. This man said religion is a part of this evolution. Okay, and all these evolutionists, Tyler, Frazer, Morgan, all these people spoke about 3 stages, basically broadly 3 stages. And humanity evolved in 3 stages. You all know that. What are the 3 stages? You have to write about that as well in this. The humanity evolved in 3 stages, from simple to complex, from homogeneity to heterogeneity, and from indefinite to definite. So what are the 3 stages? Savagery, barbarism, and civilization. So entire human culture, entire human society and human social cultural institutions have evolved over a long period of time, and the earliest stage of humanity was savagery, the middle stage of humanity was barbarism, and civilization is the ultimate stage. So, and what is the standpoint? What is the benchmark from which these people are speaking? People like Tyler, Morgan. Now we will restrict ourselves to Frazer, right? Frazer also was speaking in this language. He said humanity existed in the form of savagery in the maybe lakhs of years of time ago, humanity lived in a savagery condition. They lived like almost animal-like. And in the middle, barbarism, people have entered into agricultural stage. And later, they have evolved into this civilized stage where the Victorian British people lived. So, Victorian British people are the best example of the civilization stage. And according to him, he has said, okay, there are in these 3 stages also, people's lifestyle or belief systems or simply life in general can be fixed. So he said, even these lifestyle or this belief system evolved. So how it has evolved? Again, it has also experienced 3 stages. So let me complete this. Belief system evolved according to him. Or as I told you, there is another word for that, life also evolved. And what are the stages? The stages are savagery, barbarism and civilization. So let me explain it further through a diagram. Frazer said humanity evolved like this. Either you can draw this diagram this way or in another way. So, for the purpose of some stage by stage evolution, I have put it this way: savagery, barbarism, and civilization. Frazer said in savagery, human belief system was in the very basic beginning stage. So, humanity practiced something called as magic. And in barbaric stage, people followed religion. And in civilization stage, people picked up science. So, as humanity evolved from savagery to barbarism to civilization, their belief system or lifestyle also evolved from magic to religion to science. This is a central point of the theory of evolutionism or evolutionary theory contribution by Frazer, number one. And you have to actually elaborate this point very detailedly to fit that 15 marker space, word limit as well as time limit. Though the second part anyhow is to be discussed. I am only discussing the first part. In the first part, this man also says you have to write next you have to write is what is the basis for this, how and why people actually followed magic. People followed magic in savagery because in savagery man believed that he can actually control the elements, control the spirits and souls. So through magical rites and performances you can actually control as to how to make the life better. But as a humanity, he says, when it entered into barbaric stage, that is when people adopted agriculture, from savagery to barbarism, even just like that, magic has evolved into religion. This time, the man is unable to manipulate these elements like spirits and souls, especially even ancestral spirits. So religion has started involving gods and goddesses, the elements of nature, the larger forces of life which guided the people. In fact, you cannot actually easily completely dominate them or command them. In magic, the magician commands them. But in religion, the priest has to actually pray before the god. You cannot actually directly command the god, right? In religion, हम लोग pray करते हैं simply. भगवान के सामने पूरा हम लोग we completely bow down, and you cannot actually even try to manipulate. So manipulation नहीं चलेगा. यहाँ पे manipulation चल सकता है लेकिन यहाँ नहीं होता है. So really gods are more powerful than spirits. So that is understanding. And why, if you raise a question why, Frazer says that the kind of results that are produced by the spirits are no longer useful in religion or in barbarism, because man is now dealing with agriculture. He has to deal with lot of natural elements, water, then land, then air and sky and the sun. Every major, I can say, the natural element is so powerful that even if you try to command them or manipulate them, they will not work. So this fellow has to completely bow down. So religion involved gods and goddesses. Are you getting the logic? So he says in magic they have something, he initially called them as pseudoscience, because in magic there is some logic. So un dinon mein, in very, very long back, people had certain logic, some primitive logic they used to call. So that primitive logic worked. But here the primitive logic stopped. That logic is not working. So that's the reason this fellow calls, our Frazer calls magic as pseudoscience. But here the pseudoscience does not work. But after the Renaissance and Industrial Revolution and all, in Britain and in America and other Western countries, science has taken very strong roots. So science started developing, and along with science, humanity also entered into civilization. That means they started believing the results that they were getting from the natural forces stopped, or rather they got reduced. So with that, science has to be actually taken recourse to. So science was actually believed by the humanity to get their problems solved. So they started getting solutions from science. This is the reason why Frazer says humanity entered into science in civilization. So let's see the second part of the question now. So the second part of the question simply saying what is the place of religion in modernity, and this has come with the criticism of Frazer, because you can clearly see even in advanced society like in 21st century globalized world where science and technology has almost dominated human life, still people follow religion. We believe in gods and goddesses, we believe in miracles, we also believe in faith. There is something called as faith healing. We get a lot of emotional relief from religion, and when people go to temples and mosques and churches and synagogues, they get relief. Even in 21st century, people, when they do not get any problem solved, they again go to gods and goddesses. So religion and science coexist. Even magicians also exist. You might have been seeing in so many movies, the exorcist comes, that fellow tries to catch hold of that booth or whatever ghost. So ghost, these people are called as exorcists. So ghost के ऊपर बहुत movies आए हैं, आपको भी मालूम है. People still believe that ghosts exist. Some people say they have seen the soul, they have seen the atma, they have seen the booth. So that means people are still believing in spirits. So magic, religion and science coexist. That's the reason the critic of this man, I'll give an excellent example. James George Frazer, Frazer has written this book called, I told you, Golden Bough earlier. In Golden Bough, when Malinowski entered into Britain, he initially fell sick. He wanted to become a very big man. So he reads and gets inspired by Golden Bough. So he starts taking interest in anthropology. But after he is doing research in the Trobriand Islands, he notices that according to Malinowski, religion, magic and science all coexist together in the primitive society as well as the civilized society. So he says from the field experience, right, after studying the Trobriand people or the Trobrianders, Malinowski says magic, religion and science coexist. And how he talks with examples, because these people do magical rites and they also have extraordinary technique in garden cropping, as well as this there is a technique of what do you call this canoe building, CANOE. So there is a lot of science involved in canoe building and garden cropping or logic. So garden cropping में लोग बहुत माहिर हैं, and even in this, for that matter, as I told you, canoe building and a lot of extraordinary knowledge they have in hydrodynamics. Yeah, the word I was searching, hydrodynamics. What is the meaning of hydrodynamics? The ability to withstand the water and travel long distances. So he writes in a book called Argonauts of the Western Pacific all these things. He also writes a book called Magic, Religion and Science. So this man, in fact, very interestingly, Frazer writes a foreword to the book. Okay, so in that fashion, so Malinowski and this both are actually connected. But saying like this, magic, religion and science coexist, Malinowski has actually criticized Frazer. So in the critical acclaim, you have to write about Malinowski. So you have to also write about how this three-stage evolution of mankind is actually not liked by many. No, this is not accepted by the critics. There is another point called your armchair anthropology. Frazer has not gone into the field and worked like Malinowski did. So unilineal evolutionism was also attacked. How evolution goes in only one line, like from, again both are connected, from simple to complex and from savagery to barbarism to civilization, all the entirely one line of evolution, that is not accepted by many scholars like Julian Stewart. Julian Stewart puts forward the idea of multilinear evolutionism. So you have to write scholars like Malinowski and Julian Stewart. So in this fashion, you have to bring about the ideas of Frazer as well as people like Malinowski and also Stewart, and conclude that. So you can write your simple conclusion. So in this way, James George Frazer has contributed in his original way, though of course without field work he has done, but in those days it was fashionable to collect information from travelers, voyagers and others. Secondary sources of data were collected, but and based on those they used to write some voluminous books. But nevertheless, though they were criticized, a strong foundation was laid in classical evolutionism with the works of James George Frazer. However, future scientists have pointed out certain fallacies in this theory. Now, if you see the present modern society, all the people like Frazer, Malinowski and others are also partly right in their own way. So in this way, you have to conclude the topic. So we will talk about these kinds of questions in the coming days, and in every video I will be going like this in a 360-degree manner on the thinker as well as the points as well as a critical acclaim of this. So see you in the next video, guys. Till that time, like, share, comment and subscribe to our channel. Thank you very much. See you guys.